I'm deeply honored because our guest is somebody closer to the family, closer to us, and he is a famous personality in Cebu. He has a regular column at the Freeman Daily and Philippine Star, host of the longest running TV show, 19 years or 18 years, 19 years as a matter of fact, Straight from the Sky, aired on Sky Cable and My TV, and also host of TV show My Catechism, still on My TV, the managing director of My TV Cebu, our boss, the person who prodded and inspired me to come up with my own show as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome in my side of town, Mr. Valeriano Bobit Avila. Hi, Sir Bobit.
Well, welcome to the world of talk show host.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. So I thought there's nobody else fitting to be my first guest, especially now that we have this premier telecast. So thanks to you.
Well, Dante, very few people have really interviewed me for the simple reason that I do the interviewing myself. And nobody has gone the history that I have been through. And most people go into what you call radio interview, newspaper interviews, but kung TV interview, it's only straight from the sky.
Okay.
So you're welcome.
So it is now a reverse process. You used to interview people, now I'm the one interviewing you.
Please do that. Go ahead.
Right. Sir Bobit, I'd just like to backtrack a bit because your family name, Avila, has always been synonymous to Cebu's history, lifestyle, culture. As a matter of fact, your grandfather, Don Jose Avila, founded Teatro Jonquera or Teatro Oriente. Am
He
I right?
bought Teatro Jonquera from an American. It was a playhouse, and then when the Americans turned it into a theater, he bought into it and turned it into Oriente Theater. And then he ran it as a black and white silent films, and it became eventually a colored film, Technicolor, and then World War II came, and the Oriente was bombed by the Americans during World War II and was destroyed.
Okay, so after the bombing, was the movie house being built again from the ashes?
Don Jose Avila rebuilt it in 1950s, and it stands to the same. Actually, the front edge of that theater still stands today.
Okay, so only few people know that. So
Very few people.
this is a very interesting discussion with you because, you know, ladies and gentlemen, every time I talk to Sir Bobit, as if I'm reading a book, because I learn a lot of things, especially the history of Cebu. Now, sir, your family ran a chain of movie houses in Cebu City, and you eventually took over managing the business. But being the third sibling, the third
Son of Jesus Avila.
Jesus Avila, supposed to be is the eldest who's supposed to be run the business, but you were the one taking charge.
Actually, even my father was the only boy, and he was the only surviving son because his elder brother Bingbing died during the sinking of DSS Corregidor.
Ooh.
So he was the youngest in the brood of Don Jose Avila. Most of them were girls or women. So Don Jose Avila ran the theater for him. And then since my brother went to the States and studied in the States and eventually worked in the UN, and my elder brother worked as a architect, so the poor me had to be the guy to run the theater with him. So I went with my father to Avenida or Rizal Avenue and in Manila, and I would do the bookings also with my father until he died, and then that's why I'm close friends with Johnny Litton, Mother Lily.
Yeah, the movie producers.
Yes,
in Manila.
yes,
even
now,
stars, even actors and actresses of Manila-based
yes,
stars.
that time even Sharon Cuneta, the mayor of Lipa, was this?
Recto, Vilma Santos.
Yeah, Vilma Santos. Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Vilma Santos.
So, up to what year you manage the business?
I've managed it until probably towards more than 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I sort of shifted my activities towards, I started writing 30 years ago, but it became part of my life already.
With the birth of the malls, it really, the movie houses in Colon, which supposed to be the commercial district of Cebu City, was adversely affected.
Well, I was the only, if not I remember, if I was the president of the Metro Cebu Theaters Association, and I don't remember me being replaced.
Okay.
So call me the dictator for a lifetime because, as I said, I was never replaced, and this what you call the business has changed. I used to go to Manila every other month to do the bookings myself, talking to productions, film productions, independent movie producers, or what you call exhibitors. And then what I did was really write down all the booking schedules, put it down. That's why for me, one whole year is a what you call 52-week proposition. And since then, when the malls came, the downtown theaters became just part of it. So the bookings are now done by them, and
Okay.
we are just shared. What you call it, they're given a share of what they will be showing. So the bookings is actually easier now than before.
Now let's go back to the journalism side of you, because of course people know you not only as a TV host but as a opinion maker, columnist of the Freeman, and of course Philippine Star. What motivated you to go into journalism, or who inspired you to go into journalism?
Actually, nobody. Actually, in the last, maybe in the 85, 85, I was being attacked by a columnist. I will not mention him, he died already.
Why?
Every day because the movies, he didn't like the movies that I was showing because there was a time when they were called bomba films.
Oh yes, I
And
remember that.
he would attack me. It's not like the movies that my father used to show. And then eventually, that sort of, I could not answer because I was not a columnist. And they would dare me to answer him. And I said, what for? Why should I answer when I don't write columns? Then in 1987, after the EDSA revolution, we invited in the Rotary Club Max Oliven,
All right.
and then a year later invited him as a speaker for the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, of which I was vice president, and I picked him up in the airport. And when I picked him up, I invited him as what you call Philippine Star, Inquirer columnist. And when he arrived in the airport, he was bringing a host of newspapers, and it was entitled Philippine Star.
Mm.
And I was surprised. I invited you. I said, I'm out of that newspaper. I founded this new newspaper called Philippine Star.
Okay.
And then, during the speech that he had in St. Teresa's College, after that speech, we went to Casino Espanol, and during a Q&A, I told him about the problem with Manila columnists or journalists is that they write about Cebu as if it was Bible truth, but actually it's fourth-hand, fifth-hand information.
Yes.
And everybody kept quiet. You could hear a pin drop. And Max Sullivan looked at me across the table and said, "You're right. You're correct." And I drove him back to Cebu Plaza Hotel, and he told me, "Are you available tomorrow for breakfast?" It's a Sunday. I said, "Yes, I'll go." We had breakfast, and he offered me to write with him. And I said, I'm not a journalist." And he said, "What? You speak good English." And he said, "You should be a journalist." No, I was never invited. So here I am, Max Sullivan telling me, "I can teach you." And I said to myself, hey, if Shakespeare offered you and taught you Shakespeare, isn't that a blessing? So in a way, Max Sullivan was what you call the dean of columnists.
Yes, yes.
So I said to myself, where do I get this opportunity? So I accepted it. Here I am.
Um, you're writing for Philippine Star. Which came first, the Freeman or Philippine Star?
Actually, Philippine Star as a alikabok. When Max needed things to write about Cebu, I would report to him. I would write. I would start writing like a column and send it to him.
Okay.
And he sometimes would change about 80%.
Right.
Then eventually 40%.
Okay.
And then eventually he would not change it anymore.
Right.
But it's inside this column.
Okay.
And then he said when Nito Habat, for the late Nito Habat of Freeman, offered me to write, and I asked Max Sullivan, he said, "Good, practice mo yan."
Oh.
So he named my first and only column at the time, which until now I still do write, Shooting Straight.
Shooting Straight.
And the time, even my show later on, Straight from the Sky, was named by Max Sullivan.
There are a lot of things really I want to talk to you about, but we're kind of short of time. So I'd like to just fast forward to the time because you were so vibrant, you were full of life and energy, vigor. You know, you're into a lot of things. And then suddenly the big blow came when you had your liver ailment and
No,
you
liver,
underwent
kidney transplant.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
kidney ailment, and you underwent the surgery. So what happened?
You know, I've never been hospitalized. In my, 65 years at the time, I have never been hospitalized. The only time I go to the hospital was when my wife was having a child. So finally, I got had a fever, and I had to go to the hospital for one reason, because I was leaving for the U.S.
Okay.
with the Cebu U.S. First flight. I was invited by PAL. So I was tested by the nephrologist. It was the first time I met her. And she asked me, "I'll release you tomorrow, basta you come back to me when you come back from the States." When I came back from the States, she told me my kidneys were failing. And that was a reality I tried to avoid, but at the end of the day, the reality cannot be. Sometimes the Lord gives you things to put some breaks in your life.
So was the surgery the first option and the last
Well,
option, or was there another option?
When there is no more options, you have to have a kidney transplant or a dialysis. And my daughter, who is a dialysis nurse at the time, told me that he would not want me to undergo dialysis for the simple reason that the needles that is plugged into your veins bigger than McDonald's
Oh.
straws. So there you are. And the father of my son-in-law died while he had dialysis. So there you are.
So the surgery was the very wise and right decision.
Not only that, I did it in Vicente Soto.
Yeah.
People would not believe that I would go to a Vicente Soto for a major
Yes.
operation like this, but
Yes.
they're actually the number one in Cebu
Yes.
because it was created by Dr. Ona
Okay.
at that time.
Sir Bobit, we're running out of time, but I'd just like to this is for the record. We've been working together in my TV for almost 2 years now, and there was a time I have to admit that I felt burnout and I want to give up. But when I look at you, here's my boss who had a kidney transplant, and even older than I am, and he's still on on the go, despite what happened. And here am I, healthy and still going on smoothly, and yet sometimes I feel discouraged. So you become my source of strength, and I would like to thank you for that.
But Dante, for me, I've seen my grand-uncle, Dr. Manuel Sigura, the brother of my grandfather, Valeriano Sigura, who died in Bataan. My grand-uncle was city health officer
Okay.
of Cebu City. I think he was the first. But when he retired, I think he didn't last 1 year. He died.
Oh, Sir Bobit, I couldn't thank you enough for this opportunity, for giving us time for this very, very rare but fruitful interview that I am having with you now. So I would like to thank you.
Well, for me, Dante, I'm looking at you that you are still way past your retirement age. And for me, we journalists should not retire I think we should actually die with our boots on.
Correct, correct, correct. I agree with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bobit Avila, thank you, sir, again.
Thank you, Dante, for your beautiful
Yeah.
talk show, which is starting today.
We'll be back in a short while. Just hold on. More to come in my side of town.